What's up, party people? It's me, Ducky. Welcome back to my channel, and in this video I'm going to be talking about how I was able to get an apartment, rent an apartment even though I had like damn near the worst credit in the world. For a long time I was under the impression that you couldn't get an apartment unless you had great credit. So now that I know that that's not true, I decided that I wanted to share it with you guys. Now, if you clicked on this video for the short answer is that I used a third-party guarantor. However, if you wanted to listen to more backstory and see if I was in a similar situation as you, then stay tuned, because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just explain my situation and how I got out of it and how I was able to rent the apartment that I'm in right now. Now, to give a little bit of my allure, I had ruined my credit moving out of state. I had to come back to my family's home as an older adult. It felt very bad, but that's a little bit of my backstory. Now, at the beginning of the year, I would say a little bit at the end of last year, I started to pay close attention to Credit Karma. I started to do a lot of things that a lot of videos on YouTube would say to rebuild your credit, and it was actually working. Now, Credit Karma gives you your Vantage score. Again, Credit Karma gives you your Vantage score. So I was paying close attention to my Vantage score. At the beginning of the year, my Vantage credit score had went up to like around 680ish, 690. So I was like, oh my god, this is fine. I think it's like on the lower end of what a lot of these apartments want, because a lot of them ask for like 700 and up. You know, like as soon as you even hit up an apartment, what is your credit score? What is it? You know, so I was like, okay, I think this is decent. I don't think anybody would be like, oh. Like, because before, when I would tell them, like, the low score, they wouldn't even answer me back. So I was like, okay, I'm never going to get an apartment. Like, they need this. Like, oh, my God, whatever. So it went up to a reasonable amount. And I was like, okay, I can start looking for an apartment now. So when I started looking for apartments, I would tell the realtor, like, hey, my credit score is 680. I would just say 680. Even though it was between 680 and 690, whatever, and they would actually reply. So I was like, oh, okay, this is not so bad. The first place that I saw that I liked, that I applied to, I got denied, and then he was basically like, oh, they went with someone else because of my credit score. Even though I got a guarantor, because he was like, oh, the guarantor doesn't need to make 80 times the rent, they just need to have a good credit score. I got a guarantor, and they still like looked over me. So I was like, okay, maybe 680 is not good enough. So I worked on my credit score a little more, and it got to 700. Now, when it was 700, I was like, what are they gonna say now? You know, like they gotta take me. They gotta take this. So when my credit score was 700, I applied to a second place, and they denied me. Well, the realtor was like, I'm not even gonna show this to the landlord. I work very closely with him, and this is not acceptable. Do you have a guarantor? And I was like, what does a guarantor need? And they're like, oh, they basically need to make 80 times the rent and have like a 750 credit score. I was like, what? I just didn't know anyone that would vouch for me that had those credentials. So I was just like, no. And then that was the end of that. So now coming down to this building that I live in right here, I started praying before this building. I was just like, God, please, like, you know, help me out here. So in my heart, like the night before, I was like, what's the point of even going? Like, maybe I just have more work to do, whatever. And then in my heart, it was like, go, go, go. So when I came to this building, I was blown away because I didn't even do any research. I just kind of came here. And they have like a rooftop, a gym. This is like a washer dryer right here and all this nonsense. And I was just like, wow, okay. So I applied. And I did tell the realtor like, oh, because the previous place, she was basically like, oh, there's things from like a year ago. And you know, he doesn't tolerate that. It has to be like 2 years ago, and then they'll look at it. But you have things too close. So I was like, okay. I told the realtor for this building, like, hey, I have things on my credit, blah, blah, blah. Just wanted to be upfront. Don't want to waste your time. And she was like, okay, they're not that strict here. Just come. So I came. I loved it. I applied to this apartment that I'm in right now. That wasn't the end of it, though. You know, my gut was bothering me a lot because, like I said, I was praying. So like my gut, my heart was telling me after praying, like, oh, go and look at videos for people who have low credit and what they should do. Long story short, I found a YouTube video about a third-party guarantor, which is a business that acts as your guarantor. You have to pay them, obviously, but they're a business that acts as your guarantor. And a guarantor basically guarantees that the rent will be paid in the event that you, the tenant, do not pay it. So like that's like a safety blanket for these landlords. They're basically like, okay, if this tenant doesn't pay, I have somebody that I can go after. Because when you have low credit, you're not desirable. You look like someone who doesn't pay any of your bills. That's why your credit is low. If you paid your bills, your credit wouldn't be low. So then that's why they don't trust you. You know what I'm saying? Well, that's why they didn't trust me. So after watching that video, I was like, it got gears turning for me, and I was like, you know what, I should probably do this, but I wasn't sure. So another thing that he ended up mentioning was that there's a FICO score and then there's a Vantage score, and that the landlords look at the FICO score, which is so crazy that this video had like all the information that I was missing, all the missing pieces why I didn't get. Like, I was like, what are they talking about? Why do they keep like rejecting me? I don't get it. And that video basically explained why I was being rejected, and it was because my FICO score, when I looked it up, by the way, you can get it on Experian, but when I looked it up, it was terrible. It was under 650. So I was like mortified by that because I had no clue. I thought I was good. My Vantage score was 700. My FICO score was under 650, guys. So I was like, I'm embarrassed to say it. That's what I'm saying, under 650. So I was mortified, and I was like, okay, I'm definitely signing up or applying for guarantors. Well, okay, by the way, there are different companies that act as third-party guarantors. I used a company called The Guarantors. So I was like, okay, I'm definitely going to sign up for this and just apply. So I applied, and then I asked the realtor, like, hey, you know, just in case, do you guys use the FICO score? And if yes, do you accept third-party guarantors? And she was like, yes, we use a FICO score. She said, yes, we do accept a third-party guarantor called the Guarantors. So I was like, oh, thank God. So eventually she hit me up like, hey, do you have a guarantor? Because your credit, we pulled your report and it's not that great. And I was like, yes, actually I do. I'm sorry. I was looking at my Vantage score, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, I was like, yes, I applied for the guarantors and they accepted me. They're just waiting to hear from you guys, because that's what they do. They send you an email like, congratulations, now we've reached out to the landlord. So she was like, can you send me that email? Can you send me that email? And I was like, yeah, for sure. So I sent her the email. After that, guarantor sent me another I forgot what happens after I send them the email. I have to research, and then I'll make a video that's like more detailed about the guarantors. But long story short, I had to pay them. And then, yeah, because of the guarantors acting as my guarantor, I was approved, and now I have this apartment. But just to reiterate and to be clear, because I feel like sometimes I'm a little scatterbrained, first, when you're looking for apartments, make sure you ask the realtor, hey, does this landlord accept a third-party guarantor? If the answer is yes, ask them which company, okay? If you take nothing else away, that's the two main things you're going to do when you start looking for an apartment. That being said, I know that it's not always easy to think of yourself having to pay first month's rent and a security deposit. And on top of that, sometimes you have to pay a portion, like a finder's fee to the realtor and all this nonsense. And then to pay a company on top of that, I know that can be tough. So I actually do have advice in another video coming about how to get an apartment when you don't really have much saved up and you feel like you're paycheck to paycheck and you can't get ahead of the curve. Because I was also in a similar situation like that. Well, I was in that situation. That was my situation, similar situation. I was in that situation, and then I did one thing, and then that got me ahead of the curve. And to this day, I'm still ahead of the curve. I have never gone back to like going to zero before I get my next paycheck ever again. So if you guys want to hear that kind of content, please, you know, subscribe. I'm like, what I wanted to do again? God, I'm so scatterbrained. It's crazy. I can't string two sentences together barely. Like, I'm like, he was like Professor Xavier the X-Men. Like, what is it? Like, I don't get it. Like, I'm not moving mountains here. I'm just trying to say two sentences. It's crazy. Anyway, thank you so much. I hope that this video was helpful. I will have another video as well about the guarantors and an in-depth process. In this moment talking, I don't have the process in my mind. But if you guys want to hear about that, you know, put it in the comments. If you have more questions, put it in the comments. I will answer those questions. Anyway, thank you. Have a good day. Peace.